Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Theo Gonzalez, and I'm the Interim Director of the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center. We are thrilled that you are joining us for the second program in our series, CULINASIA, the Future of Asian Food in America, a collaboration with Smithsonian Associates and the Smithsonian's Freer Gallery of Art and Arthur M. Sackler Gallery. This free series explores food legacies and the ways in which Asian American cuisine continues to enrich our lives. Tonight, and in the next two programs to follow in June, we'll hear from chefs, food writers, food entrepreneurs, home cooks, cookbook authors, and other participants whose experiences span the complex spectrum of Asian American identities in the United States as they discuss the successes and challenges and future of Asian food in America. This series received federal support from the Asian Pacific American Initiatives Pool, which is administered by the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center. Before I turn it over to our esteemed guests, I want to thank members and supporters of the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center, Smithsonian Associates, and the Freer and Sackler Galleries. And if you'd like more information about how you can support all three of these organizations, we've put some links in the chat. At this time, I'd like to introduce the curator of the series, Simone Jacobson, who will also be your moderator for the evening. A cultural connector, Simone Jacobson is also a co-owner of the DC Burmese American restaurant, Thami. With over 15 years of experience in arts and cultural management, she has contributed to large-scale events at the National Museum of Asian Art, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and the Museum of Food and Drink in New York City. Her writing has been published in The Washington Post, Eater, Gawker, and Fusion. Please join me in welcoming Simone Jacobson.
Hi, Theo. Thank you so much for such a lovely introduction. It's so wonderful to see you. And thank you to all of you for joining us tonight for Southeast Asia Got Something to Say. I know many of you are familiar with Zoom, but before turning to our guests, I want to quickly point out a few features that might enhance your virtual experience this evening. We have so many great speakers with us that we won't have time for a traditional Q&A, but we encourage you to make comments in the chat and keep your eyes there for relevant links and information from us if you're experiencing technical issues. That's also a place where you can contact Smithsonian staff, and feel free to use the Q&A box to request assistance. You may have also noticed that this program includes live ASL interpreting, as well as closed captioning. If you'd like to hide the captions, you can click the CC or closed caption icon in your toolbar. And finally, please take a minute to complete the survey at the end of the program. We do read each and every comment, and we value your feedback about this new forum for learning. Now, a few words about our first three panelists today. Jet Tila is an Emmy and James Beard nominated Food Network star and chef partner in the Pei Wei Restaurant Group. Thanks to his diverse background and education, Jet is as comfortable as a chef and consultant as he is as a teacher and student in the art of food. His food is predominantly Thai and Chinese, and his cooking represents the neighborhood he grew up in LA, between Thai Town, Chinatown, Koreatown, and Little Tokyo. Combining his kitchen experience with the bold new world of food media was a natural move for him. Jet is now a key talent at the Food Network, working on projects across both the linear and digital networks. And I also recently learned that Jet's family owned the first Thai grocery store in America, Bangkok Market. Christine Ha is the blind cook who won MasterChef Season 3 with Gordon Ramsay. Her first cookbook, Recipes from My Home Kitchen, was a New York Times bestseller. She has spoken about disability advocacy at the United Nations and has served as a culinary envoy overseas for the American Embassy. She was also a co-host on the Canadian cooking show Four Senses and a judge on MasterChef Vietnam. Ha's first restaurant in Houston, The Blind Goat, was named a semi-finalist for 2019 Best New Restaurant in America by the James Beard Foundation, and her second restaurant, Sin Jiao, opened in September 2020. Genevieve Villamora is co-owner and general manager of Bad Saint, a Filipino restaurant in Washington, D.C.'s Columbia Heights neighborhood. In 2016, Bad Saint was named the second best new restaurant in the United States by Bon Appetit and received a 3-star review in the New York Times. Genevieve has spent almost 15 years working in DC's restaurant scene, including stints at Comey, Little Cerro, Crane and Turtle, Room 11, Big Bear Cafe, and Isan. Before starting a second career in the restaurant industry, Genevieve worked at local nonprofit organizations in DC for a decade, focusing on anti-violence work, community development, progressive philanthropy, and nonprofit arts organizations. In a few moments, Jet, Christine, and Genevieve will join me for a lively discussion about the evolution and changing perceptions of Southeast Asian food in America, based on their personal experiences in both the restaurant and media industries. And following our conversation, we'll enjoy a cooking demo by Pepper Teagan, with Genevieve cooking alongside her new favorite, Chef Auntie. Lovingly known as Pepper Thai for her love of spicy chilies, Pepper Teagan has become America's most well-known Thai mom and yai, grandma. Her passion for food goes back to her childhood growing up in the small town of Isan in Thailand, where her first job was cooking and selling coconut pancakes to commuters each day before school. And when Pepper moved to America, she became an expert, as many of our immigrant mamas are, at improvising with American ingredients when Thai ones, like green papaya and Thai basil, were not available. She not only kept her love of Thai food and traditions alive, but also used food to introduce her daughters, Chrissy and Tina, to her Thai culture. Pepper's book, The Pepper Thai Cookbook, Family Recipes from Everyone's Favorite Thai Mom, is available for purchase from our partner bookseller, Politics and Prose, and a link to purchase the book is in the chat. Get it, get it, get it. It's awesome. Unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict, Pepper was unable to be with us live this evening, but I had the pleasure of sitting in with Genevieve and Auntie Pepper, and I know that you will enjoy our pre-recorded Pad Karat cooking demonstration as much as I did. I'm sure of it. And this program will wrap up in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So if you're setting your cooking timers and you're enjoying dinner while we have the program, or you're waiting to eat until after, that's about the duration for this evening. And now I invite you all to join me in welcoming Jet, Christine, and Genevieve to our virtual stage. Hi, Jet. Hi, Christine. Hi, Genevieve. So great to see all of you. And we're just gonna jump right into it because we got a little time and a lot of ground to cover. I'm so honored and thrilled to be here with all of you. And so I thought that we would kick it off if you could share with us a little bit of your family story. And also I gave a challenge to tonight's panelists. And I think that I won't spoil the surprise, but I think all three have taken the challenge very seriously to heart. So maybe we'll start by telling us a little bit about your family story. How did your family come to the States? And how do you feel like your family story connects to the larger migration story of Asians in America? And then tell us what you brought and why you brought those ingredients, why it's important to your cooking, to your family. I'm dying to hear about all of your background. So let's jump into it. Who's up first?
No one wants to go first, ever.
Well, I'm going to call it Genevieve because I see her ingredients right behind her. So I'm like, all the suspense is already right there in our eyes.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to my fellow panelists and also to everybody who's tuning in via the internet. I'm excited to be here with you all and be talking about Southeast Asian food and where it's going in the US. So I'll start just by telling you a little bit about myself. Simone gave a very generous introduction. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. And my parents immigrated to Chicago in 1974. And it might seem like a strange place for tropical people to end up in the middle of the cold Midwest. But like many immigrant stories, the reason why they chose Chicago is because they knew someone who had already immigrated there, which was my auntie, my mom's sister. And so that's how we ended up there. And my parents were part of that wave of Filipino immigration out of the Philippines that took place during the Marcos administration after the institution of martial law. And so there were many, many people who left the Philippines at that time because they feared for their future prospects, both economically, but also politically. And some of them feared for their lives even, depending on how vocal they were in speaking out against the Marcos administration. So that's how my parents ended up in Chicago. And my ingredients that you can see behind me, I have sort of a hodgepodge here, but I think I would be remiss if I didn't start with rice. Like many other Southeast Asian cultures, rice is fundamental and foundational to Filipino food. The way that I like to describe it is that it's like the blank canvas that all the big, bold flavors shine against, and that without something so basic and plain, that those flavors wouldn't pop in the same way. And I remember for school—
What kind of rice is that, Genevieve?
This is jasmine.
My favorite.
It's probably Milagrosa. And I've also got mangoes, which my son is currently obsessed with and eating about 2 a day, I think. But mangoes always make me think of my parents, and also they're just such a quintessentially tropical fruit. And in the Philippines, there's something that we enjoy both when they're ripe like this, but also in their underripe green form in lots of savory dishes. Let's see, what else have I got here? I've got rice vermicelli noodles, which in the Philippines we call bihon. And you mostly see this particular noodle, you mostly see in soup just because they're so super thin that they cook really fast. And soup with bihon noodles was always something that my mom would make me when I wasn't feeling so hot, and it would always just be such like a comforting thing to eat. And then the thing that I'm ending with is probably one of our prized things in the refrigerator, which are homemade bitter melon pickles made by my father-in-law. So these are just the perfect accompaniment to any fried or very rich food like pork belly or grilled meats. They just have such a nice punch of acid and bitterness. And the other stuff that's in here is carrots, garlic cloves, onions, peppercorns, and ginger.
Ooh, delicious. So in the Philippines, Genevieve, what would you use the bitter melon pickle for?
We'd eat it on the side with something that's like really, really rich, you know, like in the same way that we have like pickles on the side of barbecue or pickles on the side of like fried chicken, something acidic to kind of cut through all of the richness and the oil of fried foods. And when I like, in general, my experience with Filipino pickles is they tend to lean more on the sweeter side, which I love. And I also feel like for these bitter melon pickles in particular, that the sweetness is especially welcome to help temper the bitter melon.
Oh, delicious. Christine, what you got over there?
Yeah, so I'll start a little bit about my family story as well. So I'm Vietnamese American. My parents came here to the US in 1979. They left Ho Chi Minh City, or back then it was called Saigon, in 1975, the day before the fall of Saigon, so at the end of April. They escaped on a US naval ship as the Vietnam War was ending, and they were floating at sea for a while, made it to the Philippines, flew to Guam, and they were at a refugee camp before they were sponsored by a church in Pennsylvania, and they moved there. They also ended up in Chicago at some point, found it too cold, being tropical people, ended up in Los Angeles where they had other family, and then eventually came to Houston for my dad's work. So I was born in Southern California in LA, grew up in Houston, but I think my story is very familiar to a lot of the Vietnamese people perhaps that live here in the US. just that the refugee or the immigration story because they were leaving a war-torn country. And so I think that is like a very common thread among many Vietnamese people who found themselves in the US. So that's my background, my family story. The ingredients that I have here, the first one I have is a stalk of lemongrass. This is something that we use in a lot of dishes. Usually we marinate it with a protein, so typically pork or beef or chicken. And this kind of, it gives off a slightly sour, but like not like too acidic of a flavor. It's kind of an earthy flavor. I actually have used lemongrass to infuse it into different spirits as well, like, vodka or gin and rum. That's been an interesting thing to use to infuse in some spirits and make cocktails out of them. Another thing I have here is star anise pods. So this is, if you can see here, they're kind of like star shaped. They're very pungent. This is quintessential for making pho, or the Vietnamese beef noodle soup. It's also used in Vietnamese chicken noodle soup, or pho ga. It has a sort of a licorice taste and smell as well. And this is often used in Chinese cuisine as well. But Vietnamese people have picked up on that as well for the noodle soups. Let's see what else I have here. I have here a small block of coconut palm sugar. This is similar to brown sugar in a way, but I find it's a little bit, I think more well-rounded, I would describe it. It's more buttery, more, I think has more depth in flavor than perhaps your white or brown sugar. So we use this quite a bit in a lot of our food because Vietnamese food is very much about balancing all the flavors, textures, and temperatures. So for example, we would use this at one of my restaurants in Jiao. We make Pickle, which is a comfort food, braised pork belly. And this is the kind of sugar that we use to use in that braised meat. I have here also some rice paper, which I know is often used in a lot of Southeast Asian foods. So right now this is dehydrated. It's dried out in the sun, but if you reconstitute it by putting a little bit of water, it becomes very pliable and a little bit sticky as well. And then of course this is used to make spring rolls, fresh spring rolls. And you can also fry them after you roll them and they become crispy and they're egg rolls. Of course, I have to mention fish sauce. I don't have the bottle open because it would be very distracting during this event, but fish sauce is my absolute favorite ingredient to cook within the kitchen. It was actually kind of my secret weapon when I was on MasterChef competing because a lot of people didn't know how to use it, but a little bit goes a long way. So it's fermented anchovies. And I use it in a lot of things, not even in Vietnamese food. I use it when I make Texas chili. I use it when I make bolognese sauce. So it's really good in a lot of different applications to add just a slight hint of umami and savoriness and saltiness. But if you add just a little bit, it goes a long way. So those are my ingredients.
Yes, fish sauce is king. Thank you so much, Genevieve and Christine. I know Jet is like chomping at the bit and I want to hear everything. Tell us, Jet, tell us everything.
Hey, good evening, fellow panelists. And hi, everyone, for making time to hang out with us. I think we need to send a note to the control that we need to spotlight the speakers. So I don't know if that's already happened or not, but I got that note on the chat. Hi, everybody. Jet Tila here. So my family story is my mom and dad were in that first wave of Thais to come over to the States in mass, which was 1966, by the way. And most of them landed here in East Hollywood, where I still live in Silver Lake, by the way. I mean, of course, they flew into LAX, but the large concentration of them ended up living in East Hollywood, where my family actually opened the first Thai grocery store in the history of the country, which was called Bangkok Market in 1972. In 78, they also started a group of restaurants called the Royal Thai Cuisine, and they were, some of the first in Southern California. Anyway, so I was one of those typical, grocery store kids and restaurant kids. So depending on what day of the week it was, I would either come to the restaurant and fall asleep on the banquette after some side work, or I get shuffled to the grocery store and, bag groceries, which was a phenomenal upbringing. Ethnically, I know we're mostly Chinese. So, which is another topic that I'd like to bring to my fellow panelists later, how we identify. I'm a little stuck, food wise, I definitely know Thai food better, but my grandmother, the hundreds of meals that we spent cooking together was mainly Chinese. So that's my story of how my family came here to LA. I brought some really fun goodies for my friends and Melissa's. I have some dragon fruit here, which is, looks cooler than it actually tastes. As a lot of you know, if you've ever had it, comes in 3 primary colors. These are white, actually. They come in ruby or red, and then they have yellow, which is, I think, the hardest. I brought the fresh bitter melon. I know Genevieve had a pickled bitter melon. Every good Asian grandmother forced a good Asian kid to try to eat this because they told us it was good for us. The jury's still out, in my opinion. I have a jackfruit here, a whole jackfruit. My father also, in the 80s, the story is he brought hundreds of jackfruit plants into Mexico and more south and proliferated kind of the whole jaca, phenomenon. And I spent a lot of my time in Mexico and Central Valley as a kid. I have mangosteens, which is they say, it's either this or durian, which is the king of fruit. But again, you can look all these up later. I'm not going to take over this entire talk, but also some fresh lychee. So yes, not an overachiever. I just wanted to share some of our culture. But that's the short bio and some of the fun stuff I brought to play tonight.
Well, Jet, that's my mom's absolute favorite fruit, the mangosteen.
Oh, that's mine too.
Yeah,
For sure.
Maybe you could just describe for I would say 90% of the people watching who've never had a mangosteen. What does it taste?
Sure, I'll open one. I'll open one as we go. So so as I talk and maybe I won't hurt myself, but so they grow on trees, very firm. You can hear on the shell and the outside, pretty cool fruit profile. But I'm actually going to lean on my fellow chefs on the panel too in terms of flavor. To me, they have almost a soft, almost like a soft peach, in terms of texture. I would even say that balance of acidity and sweet. So they have these little kind of segments here, and then you kind of pop one out, and you don't eat the outside, you only eat the inside. Let's see how graceful I can be under pressure here.
Well, and then once you take it out, it's got a seed inside of there too.
Yeah, well, each segment has its own seed, and then and depending how large they are, they're actually edible. So there you go. Tough part of my job.
Yeah, when we were on the Food Network, that's how we met Jet. And Guy Fieri said he'd never even seen it. Was in his own grocery store, and he said he never even had one.
That's right, and you know what? That's me. I'm the grocery store kid that brings all the goodies to the grocery store.
Yeah, well, I'm here in Mexico right now, and I literally have yucca growing in my yard. So you have to say a big thank you to your parents for that one. That's huge. That's so huge that they that they were part of. I mean, how does that even happen? How do you send?
Oh, wow.
Whole third country? I'm sure the statute
is already passed. So in about the 80s, I remember my father would take rootstock, right, citrus rootstock, and then he'd transplant the jackfruit in there. And then we had hundreds and hundreds of them, and he literally drove them down into Mexico. He was also kind of credited as the first guy to say, hey, you see those Meridol papayas there? We'll take all of them unripe, totally green. And the guy's like, why are you going to do that? I said, don't worry about it. We have our reasons. And I think he brought him in and marked them up 10 times, like the first time we saw a green jackfruit for all of our communities, by the way. So lots of fun produce stories of my father, Pat Yee, doing questionable things to help forward ingredients in the Americas.
Well, maybe that will help us to kind of think a little bit about, I'm wondering from Christine and Genevieve too, I'm just imagining for your family that like that level of ambition for legacy, it's such a high bar. What are some of the first like childhood food memories that you have of your parents? Because I think that those of us I have observed this kind of trend where I grew up actually with my best friend's Thai parents in Arizona owning restaurants. And so I grew up making Thai food, even though my mom is from Burma. So a lot of my first food memories are actually cooking Thai food. And I feel like there was at that time a lot of parents that would, like you said, have their kids sleeping in the restaurant and bagging groceries and doing whatever in their restaurants. And now in our generation, we're owning restaurants and we're either looping in our parents or they're kind of like scratching their heads like, wait, we didn't come here for you to do this. So I'm wondering if some of those first food memories, like did that ambition or vision, the way your parents cooked, did that have a big influence on how you ended up owning restaurants and working in restaurants for you, Genevieve and Christine?
I can go. It's funny that my story is a little bit different. So, my mom was a very good home cook, and she was actually a social worker when I was growing up. And we didn't own restaurants. We didn't own grocery stores. I wasn't interested in cooking when I was a kid. I mostly was interested in eating her food. But it was not until I was older, and then she had actually died when I was younger and never taught me how to cook, never left a recipe behind. And it was when I was older in college that I found myself missing those flavors of my youth. And that's when I decided to go back and explore not only my heritage, but through the memories of my mom and her cooking, how to recreate the dishes that she would cook for our family as I was growing up. So for me, it's been a lifelong journey of trying to explore my past. And so it's really just keeping my mom's spirit and memory in the kitchen with me. So for me, it's a little bit backwards where I didn't really necessarily grow up directly around food, but because, I ate a lot of her food and I miss it. It's been kind of my own life project to kind of do her a service with her home cooking. So that's how I've gotten into cooking and how I'm always trying to chase making her noodle soups as good as the way she made it.
But on that note too, I was reading that Gordon Ramsay had given you a little bit of pushback, like, well, we're not plating this. I didn't see the episode, but I read a little bit about that. He kind of had given you a knock for not plating and maybe as elevated a way as they were expecting on the show. Do you feel like after leaving the show that you kind of took that as something to not rebel against, but something to kind of accept and defend that this life mission that you're talking about of honoring your family legacy, like how does that translate into how you plate and how you serve?
Yeah, I think, a lot of times growing up, if we're eating in the home, it's not really about how beautiful the presentation is. It's kind of when your parents are both working parents and busy and trying to take care of the family and get the meal on the table, it's really just about putting the food on the plate or the bowl and getting it on the table. So it wasn't really until I was on the show that I had to think more about presentation and plating. And for me, it's a different sensory experience as well, because I am visually impaired. So I don't know necessarily what the food exactly looks like as I'm plating. But because I was born with sight and I lost it as a young adult, I have that memory of different colors and, Vietnamese foods, Southeast Asian foods, all of our, like you can see from Jet's fruits, that everything is super colorful. So I remember the colors of different things. So when it was time to plate, I would imagine exactly what the plate should look like in my head. And then I would set about recreating it with my fingers. And, on the show, I think a lot of times Vietnamese food, like many of the other Southeast Asian foods, we think of it as like humble cuisine. So it was something that I had to learn. And, I did struggle with figuring out how to present the food more beautifully, especially with the limitation of not being able to see. But eventually I understood that there's the vibrant colors you work with, just the different things that I did learn and picked up on, like about building height on the plate, and learned about negative space. And that's just comes with learning about design. And so I think I took all of these different tips and advice away from the show, and that helps me figure out how to plate nowadays.
Yeah. Wow. What an incredible experience. What about you, Genevieve?
Well, my family was not involved in food or restaurants in any way. But I do have very vivid food memories from my childhood, and food was always a really central part of our family life. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I think I've just fielded a bunch of requests recently that have pushed me to reflect on this. And I feel like very, very generally speaking, that the many Asians and Asian Americans that I have met in my lifetime, both in Chicago and here in DC, I feel like a common thread that we've shared is this feeling of being food obsessed, and having this like really over the top, like full-hearted enthusiasm for being completely obsessed with food. And and I feel like almost that must be intensified in the immigrant experience, because as an immigrant, I'm not an immigrant, but as the child of immigrants, I feel like for immigrants that food starts to carry even more weight than it normally does, in that food becomes a taste of home, and food becomes a way to recapture an memory and nostalgia, and a way to remember people that are not with you. And so for me, the more I think about it, I feel like maybe that's at least a piece of my family's food obsession, is that very often eating and sharing food came with stories, and that is what I feel like was also passed down to me. And I never thought I would end up in the restaurant business. I always loved food. I really didn't learn how to feed myself until I went to college. Like, I literally knew nothing about how to put a meal together. But I did always spend a lot of time in the kitchen with my mother, and we were always talking. I was always watching her, and she was always telling me stories about what she was cooking. And I don't think I realized until I became a young adult how much I really soaked in of that time with her, and that I would just, even though I really did not know a thing, I found myself automatically doing things that I saw her do in the kitchen, like using the side of a cleaver to smash a clove of garlic, stuff like that. And for me, I think also I've always felt very connected to my Filipino-ness, even if I didn't really know how to define that exactly for myself at different points in my life. And so part of my journey to opening Bad Saint was really just feeling very called in this weird way to something that would enable me to showcase the pride that I have for my culture and the food that we have, and to want to share that with people. And in the course of having the restaurant, I have learned so much about Filipino food and history and culture in the past 7 years of preparing to open and of operating the restaurant than I have in my whole previous life combined. And I think that for me has been an incredible experience, just feeling like, there's always more to learn, and that what we think is so definitive and what we think so authoritative is really just a drop in the bucket. And there's, and we're also always in the position of defining for ourselves what our identity means.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you're talking about something I really wanted to talk a lot about, because we have a joke in our kitchen, where my mom is the executive chef. When we first started, we could not, for the life of us, get her to tell us the measurements of anything. We're trying to cost out the recipes, and we're saying, how much of this do you use? And she would say, well, this much. And what's this much? This is my fist. And so we're like, but what if somebody has a different size fist? And so the running joke in our kitchen is like, well, it's the size of JoJo's fist. But, as a restaurant owner, that's really hard. And so, I think that's sort of something that all the Southeast Asian cooks and mothers that I know, there's one, I would say, defining sort of feature of Southeast Asian cooking is that often there are not measurements, and certainly not as militant as some of the European, recipes. And as Christine was saying, I don't think it has to do with our food being humble. I think it has to do with the sort of popular folklore that you just do it until your ancestors whisper to you. And so, I do want to talk a little bit, since we are we're chefs here, a panel of chefs, about actual cooking techniques. What are some of the things that in not just Vietnamese and Thai and Filipino cooking, but all of our, I think it's important for audience members who might not be familiar to know. I mean, when I think about my mom's home country of Burma, it's surrounded by Thailand and India and China. So Burmese cooking and Burmese ingredients and cooking techniques are also Chinese and Indian and Thai. And so, can you talk a little bit about some of the actual techniques? We talked about the ingredients, but how are you actually cooking that's different besides maybe not measuring or smashing the garlic clove with the cleaver?
I think you're gonna have to call on someone, Simone. We're all.
Well, I'm calling on you.
No one wants to go.
I know there's like so much politeness and sweetness.
Yeah, that's what it is. I didn't want to
there.
generalize, but we're all being polite.
You got to get in there, Jet. No, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you about what kind of techniques you think are more specific to our region, to the way we cook.
Yeah, I think all of us that are here, the Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, we're all woven together by, I would say, geography in terms of ingredients, right? So, when I think about the different cultures, we also have, on the panel, we have some Lao cooks, in the audience as well. So I guess the how do we cook, right? Again, going back to those Chinese roots, noodles and rice and stir fry. We borrow them, I think, a lot from some of our Chinese cousins and in my case, Chinese grandmothers. So, and also when I think about Southeast Asian food, I think about paste. I think we are masters of herbs. And again, everyone on this panel is anyway, I would say between, Burma and, all of us anyway, so I think about, making paste in stone mortars. And I think about now expressing those flavors by frying paste. But just a very quick story, my first cookbook was basically 101 recipes. And my grandma was no different than your grandmas and mothers and grandfathers and uncles and aunties. She never measured anything. She was very frustrated because her hands are about this big and she would say one finger. And I didn't know what the heck one finger meant. And, my first job. Yeah, right. And right. Well, all of rice is going to be different. My first job out of culinary school, French culinary school anyway, was working at the Los Angeles Times in the test kitchen. So one tip that I can give to anyone who maybe is coming up and cooking with grandmas or cooking with moms is, I would put a scale under her in a bowl and I would set it to the gram measurement. And then I would say, it doesn't matter, grandma, mom, put whatever you want in there, soy sauce, fish sauce, whatever. And then I would take the measurement and in weight on grams. And then, later I went off to be a, executive chef, institutional chef, hotel chef, fine dining chef. And by taking all of those measurements by weights and grams, it really helped me standardize and scale. So just one little anecdote I could add in there for those of us that are finding the journey to document our family's recipes, because that is so key. There's nothing more important. I put a video camera in front of my mom and I just make her talk and I make her cook and we record and then I weigh and hopefully we can pass those recipes on.
I want to say that's actually really smart, Jet, because I think as restaurant owners and as chefs, like we know when we have to write recipes down and learn to scale them as well for our staff. Measurements, especially in grams, is vital. And of course, yes, our grandmas, our moms, when they cook, they would say oh, just a little bit of this to this taste. And, that's all very preferential. So I think measuring with a scale in grams is very key to preserving those family recipes.
Everybody do that and you will get to that flavor, because it's so difficult to cook by visual and to use common measurements.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm East Chefy of the panel, as someone who's more on the front of the house side and operations overall side, but just wanting to echo what Jet said in terms of really documenting the family recipes, because they're that's part of our priceless heritage, and it's like her family, and you don't really know what you have until you start asking questions. And I feel like for a lot of us, when we visit older relatives, whether they're our parents or grandparents or aunties and uncles, what I've heard from a lot of people around my age or younger is, they haven't learned how to make it because it always tastes better when the older folks make it. So they don't want to mess it up. So they just let the older folks make it. Well, then who's gonna make it when they pass? And then I think that also it can open up such a door into generations connecting, because I think what I have also heard on the other end from older folks is that young folks don't ask. And young folks, they assume that maybe we're not asking because we don't want to learn, which is not necessarily true. And I found that a lot of times just asking the question or being like, I know sometimes it seems like, our elders don't want to teach us because maybe we're very frustrating to them, which I completely understand. But if you are persistent, I feel like to a lot of them, that proves that you really want to know, and Mom, let's block out a Saturday and you can teach me how to make this dish that you always make at Christmas time, that's like so work intensive. And I want to spend the time with you to find out how you make it so that I can make it too, And I think that, that it's so important to have those conversations and really pass on those traditions and have a way of documenting them so that they continue. And as a mom too, I feel like so aware of that. In terms of, having traditions and making your own traditions as a family.
I kind of want to add to Genevieve's thoughts as well. I feel like it is, very important to preserve these family recipes. And I think a lot of times, I think maybe the younger generation, maybe they may not want to bother because it seems very laborious, like these noodle soups that cook for 24 hours and all these things that seem very, I guess, tedious to do. But I think what ends up happening, and I've noticed myself doing this, is that I learned to cook a dish that's been in our family in the traditional way. Like, for example, yes, like boiling the bones for pho for 24 hours or whatnot, or making the pork belly and braising it on a pot on the stove for several hours. But then nowadays, there's also the modern technology of like, the pressure cooker or a sous vide machine or just different things that have come onto the scene that also have helped many of us like cut down the times of the recipes, make it more convenient, make it easier to use. So then I think that's also in interesting ways that we're kind of turning the cuisine in a way where we're modernizing it and making it, in some ways like more convenient to make on a weekday. Because, most of us are now like working parents, we're not necessarily like able to have the time all the time to cook a bone broth for so many hours.
Yeah, I'm going to add one tiny point if I may. Also, I didn't come from the warmest family in the world, and they were also uneducated, so we did not come from the educated class or the wealthy class. So the only bonding that I had with my grandparents' parents that was even in warm or loving was in those moments in the kitchen. So this is an opportunity. Tape is cheap. We all have one of these. You have every recording device you need. And even if you just spend an afternoon cooking with your family member and you put that away, and you obviously get that scale, okay, and then you just take your notes and put it away, you can come back to it months, years later, and that's a little treasure that you've had from your family where you've actually had a warm moment. And I'm seeing a lot of nods, so I know we all can relate here.
Yeah, I mean, it really took me opening a restaurant with my mom to even, figure that out. And we actually ended up doing exactly what you're describing, Jeb, because my business partner is Taiwanese and Japanese and American. And all of those things make him incredibly disciplined and the exact opposite of what I know Burmese people to be, which is, I sometimes say we're like the Nigerians of the East. We're like wild and loud and bold in our flavors and our colors. And so, here's my business partner literally just like sliding behind my mom with a scale, like, show me one more time, and just like dropping the ingredients in the scale. So I'm laughing as you're talking about that because we did the exact same thing. And it was the only way, we could possibly extract the information that we need to train and work with other cooks, right? Because one person is not going to cook for 200 something people a night. But I feel like we are going so fast on this train. So I want to make sure that As we were conceptualizing this program, the CULINASIA series, we were about, I would say midway through whatever this phase of the pandemic is. People say pre and during and post. I don't even know what to call it. I think it's hard for us to call it, but we know that it's after the shutdown was, over a year ago. And I remember, Genevieve and I doing some organizing together in DC, and how what an emotional roller coaster it was. So I guess I'm really curious to hear, and we're going to actually start to wind down. I feel like we could just talk about this for 4 more hours, but before we're kind of winding down this part of our program, I want to just kind of pause for us to think about our outlook now that we've, kind of lived through this. I mean, Christine opened a restaurant in lockdown, in some places lockdown time, and during the pandemic. I'm just wondering how all of you feel, what your outlook is on the future of Southeast Asian food. Are you hopeful? Do you see Southeast Asian restaurants near where you're living and working? Are they staying open? Are they closing? We just talked in our last program about saving Chinatowns and these legacies, those cultural hubs that are going to be gone, some of them gone forever. I'm really just curious, kind of like, where are we trending in your opinion, as a chef, as a person who's cooked and eaten Southeast Asian food? Like, I had this feeling that Southeast Asian food was on this rise, and I wrote about it for Eater, and my thought was like, gosh, like just before the pandemic is right when we're at that tipping point. I mean, as I read your bios and as people are listening and thinking about all that you, just the 3 of you and your restaurants and your teams have accomplished, I felt like we were on this amazing, meteoric, like momentous rise. And then here comes the pandemic, and I just wondered, like, are people going to remember us? Are they going to comfort foods of pizza and pasta, and are they going to come back to us? And I know it seems a little drastic to say that, but I really wondered, and I know Genevieve and I and folks in our community talked about it. Will we ever be, as ubiquitous as sushi and as Chinese food? And so I know I threw kind of a lot of questions at once, but really, of course, what we're trying to get at is, I want to know what your outlook is. I want to know, for you, what does the future look like? And really, like, on a personal level, what do you see happening with Southeast Asian food? I see Christine nodding, so I'm going to call you in, Christine.
Sure. Yeah, I have an answer to that. I feel like, for me, Southeast Asian food is sort of experiencing, in my opinion, a renaissance. So I feel like our parents' generation, a lot of them came to the US, did these mom and pop shops, did the very traditional dishes and meals, and people started to try it. They liked it. I feel like now, I think there's this sort of second generation thing happening with it. And I'm speaking from a personal viewpoint, of course, because both of my restaurants I consider like modern Vietnamese restaurants. And now it's our generation, those of us who were born here in the US, but grew up eating these flavors and, these cuisines. We're taking it to a different level where perhaps we're using more local ingredients. We're using different cooking techniques that are more modern. We're plating them in a different way. We're now moving away from having our restaurants on the outskirts or in Chinatown or in Asia town of a city, and moving more into the city where there's a lot more of hustle and bustle and metropolis life happening. So I see like Southeast Asian cuisine is having this renaissance and kind of being reborn again into something slightly new and varied. And I think I think it will, I'm also biased, right? Because Southeast Asian food is like my favorite. And I love that it's very vibrant, you get your fresh herbs, you get a lot of fresh ingredients, you get different textures. The flavors are so well balanced, I think, in Southeast Asian foods and dishes, that I think other people who are new to Southeast Asian food are now discovering new dishes that are, there's so much more to Vietnamese food, for example, than pho or your banh mi sandwiches or your rice plates. There's all of these other dishes that now people are starting to really get into and discover and feel, healthy eating it. They don't feel heavy after eating it. So I really think Southeast Asian food is on the up and up.
Even, I'm just gonna tag one more, because I really as a restaurant owner, also I couldn't stop thinking, like, as I was reading your bio and thinking about opening a restaurant in September 2020, do you feel just as hopeful? I mean, having opened one pre-pandemic and one after the shutdown, I mean, you still feel all that optimism.
Yeah, it was definitely a struggle, having one restaurant, and we were just kind of like, I felt like we were really reaching this high point with the first restaurant, The Blind Goat, because we had just been, nominated for a James Beard Award. And then we had just come out with a 3-star review in the Houston Chronicle. And then the pandemic hit. And then I actually had signed the lease on the second restaurant before the pandemic. So we were kind of accruing this back rent. And then, my partners and I knew that, okay, this pandemic is here for a long time. We have to figure out a way to feed the community and make some money to pay down our debt. So and I feel like when you put yourself to the hardest test and then you figure out that you can survive it, and regardless of how many adaptations you have to make things work, you start realizing that no matter what life throws at you, there's a solution. You just have to really think outside of the box. And it is definitely not always easy. It was very tough. There's, many days of us like changing our menu on the fly all the time, just because ingredients weren't coming in. They weren't readily available with all of the shortage and the supply chain. And then, what people weren't dining out, what they wanted to eat, they wanted to pay, a certain amount for food. They wanted to eat at home. They had to transport well. So it's a lot of things to like definitely think about, but I think these were good challenges to take on. And then it just makes me feel more confident that whatever life hands me next, I can definitely take on.
There's no doubt in my mind that there is no challenge tall enough to take out Christine Ha. I'm 1000% convinced of that. Genevieve, tell us a little bit about, it's so crazy because we live like shoulder to shoulder in the trenches through the beginning part, but tell me about your outlook. Are you optimistic? What do you see? Shake your crystal ball.
Yeah, I think that in terms of the progress and the ascent of Southeast Asian food as part of the American table, like, I don't think anything is going to obstruct that continued progress. And part of it is that, Southeast Asians are not going anywhere, and neither is our food. And if anything, I see it not only growing and becoming more widespread and becoming more part of the fabric of restaurant scenes, not just in the really big cities, but also in smaller towns. Like, there's this little beach town in Delaware that we go to in the summertime, and we found this amazing Vietnamese restaurant there, like tucked away in this tiny little strip mall, like next to a pet store and like all this other, suburban stuff. And their food was so delicious, and we were super psyched because we're like, okay, now we know we have really good food when we come to the beach. And I think that's just happening all over the country. So I don't really think that with all of the challenges that we have faced, pandemic and otherwise in the past year, I don't think that those challenges will slow those things down. If anything, I feel like Southeast Asians have more fire in their belly and even more pride in their culture, whether they are hip hop artists or actors or restaurateurs and chefs. I think if anything, from what we've seen of the past year, I mean, we're seeing our culture change in front of our eyes. Sometimes it feels like it's not the changes that we want to celebrate, but I think there are a lot of positive things to point to, particularly with regard to representation and just being able to see yourself represented when you turn on the TV or you download a movie from Netflix or you go out to eat. Like, it's really amazing to be able to see that. And just that the folks who are coming up now, they've seen that representation as part of their formative years. And I think that is going to be very impactful. In terms of, the role of Southeast Asian restaurants, if anything, I've learned from this pandemic, that it really takes a community to keep a restaurant going. And I think that part of why Southeast Asian restaurants are going to continue is that, for a lot of us, especially for smaller restaurants, you really do become part of your community. And you're like you're like the corner store, you're like, you know, the dry cleaner or the bookstore. You know, you get to know the people around you. And I feel like that's what we've learned, is we have felt incredibly supported by our community. And also, as we've been trying to like always be thinking of new ideas all the time, which is our new MO, we've also tried to come up with new business ideas that give our community a chance to connect, not just with us, but with each other. And
Yes.
And I think that that also has just really confirmed for me how much a part of our community we are. And so I think with that reality, I don't think that we're going anywhere. I'm actually really excited to see what else Southeast Asian chefs and restaurateurs can do, because I just feel like there's so much creativity and so much energy in our community. And yeah, I just feel like it's a very bright future ahead.
Yeah, you know, I think certain groups have already hit ubiquity. I think Thai food, I think Vietnamese concepts like pho, for sure, banh mi. It's time now for Filipino. It's time now for Lao. It's time now for Burmese. But you know what? It's a rising tide, though, right? So I think the American palate is already craving these flavors: hot, sour, salty, sweet, savory. So now it's time to give them more. And I also think food is a spectrum, because you know I've lived on every branch of the spectrum. I was a fine dining chef. I've done, you know, a multi-unit, fast casual now. So every day, as many people as there is, you know, experiencing, you know, fine Asian, there are people just getting into Asian, right? And their vehicles used to be chow mein. Now their vehicles are pho, and their vehicles are, you know, pad thai used to be the thing, and now it's maybe khao soi. So I think we have actually hit ubiquity in a good way, and now it's time to take the rest of us up with us. And representation is massive. I think, you know, part of, you know, I'm really proud to be on linear TV, digital TV, because it is really true. I mean, if you don't see it, you can't really believe that you can be it. And I think a lot of us, you know, we've been pigeonholed into, you know, media wise as to, you know, either the intellectual or the this or that. I think we're breaking out of that finally. And, you know, it's bittersweet though, the restaurant business, right? The craving for Asian food is only going to increase, but the pandemic has taken out a ton of mom and pops and a ton of restaurants. So I feel for the restaurants that have not made it, but I am hopeful for the restaurants that have made it through and that are going to open, because the demand is pent up. And I think there's only an upward trajectory for Southeast Asian food in general.
Yeah, and I mean, I just have to say that I'm so grateful to all of our partners for these CULINASIA events, because, you know, I find myself really just tearing up when I look at the screen and I see Genevieve and Jet and Christine, and I think about, you know, Genevieve and the time Genevieve and I spent with Auntie Pepper, and all of you get to see her really soon. This is something I never saw as a child. And I'm sure that there were museum and cultural programs, but 100% for back-to-back, all Asian American, all talking about food in our own voices, from our own experience. And for Christine and Jet to be doing that on television, you know, I think that early on when we first started The Me, it was very difficult. You know, my mother is of a different generation, and she was not keen to talk to the newspaper, to go on television. And now look at her, you know, having been on the Food Network. It's really important. And, you know, a lot of times I've been trying to convince her. And so as you were making tips for people that are trying to get older generations to participate, there's a lot of great, I think, momentum around TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. My friend Sarah Wynn, who runs Wynn Coffee Supply, she's got a whole cooking channel for her mom. And, you know, for us to empower that generation, I definitely can speak for myself. I have a love-hate relationship with social media, but I do want to see, just in general, like Jet was saying, maybe it's just for your own archive, that it does actually really, really, really matter that we see ourselves represented. And please continue to do everything that you're doing. And I think we can all do our part to insist that we be front and center, because it's absolutely our moment. And we're all out here we're gonna get this rice. And we're gonna get this rice with Auntie Pepper now. And so we're gonna start to make our way into our cooking demonstration. So I really wanna thank all of you for joining us for this segment. And I hope we'll have a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4 at all of your restaurants soon enough. And back here, I'm gonna get ready to cook. And I hope all of you will too. At the end of the cooking demo, for those of us who are just joining the webinar, we will be putting the recipe in the chat. And so as a reminder that unfortunately Pepper Teagan is not able to join us live, but she will be with us on screen. And so before we say bye to all of you, is there anything else you want to share with each other or with the audience tonight before we transition over to cooking with Auntie Pepper?
I just want to say, thank you for having me on this. I'm really humbled to be on the same panel with all of you, and I'm really tickled and just touched that we're able to get together and talk about all the similarities we have, but also the differences we have between the different countries from which we cook. And so I'm just excited to, I think Southeast Asian food, like I said, I know I'm biased because it's like my favorite, but I'm excited that we're able to share this with other people who may be just discovering it. So I think we're in the start of a great thing.
Yeah, I'm just really grateful to Simone and also grateful to the Smithsonian for making this space for us to be able to get together. I mean, I feel like probably so many of us, and not just, chefs and restaurateurs, but everyone who's participating in this call has just been juggling and hustling so hard during this pandemic. And it's really, really so special to have this time together to talk about all these things. And I just want to say thank you for that, because this is definitely a very nice respite from my usual day-to-day.
Yeah, I'm going to echo my fellow panelists and thank you to everybody who made this happen. Simone, Smithsonian, Christine, Genevieve, thanks so much. It's really an honor to be a part of this group and all living in a time where, as a son of immigrants, to go in from one generation, to see what happens within 50 years of what we all can do as a group, eat out at your restaurants, support your favorite, community places and personalities. And that's it. Thank you so much. It was really nice to hang out with everybody.
Thank you all so much. And just so you know, as we're transitioning over, y'all should check out the chat. There's so much love for your restaurants in there. And I love all of these areas, obviously. But I think for those of you watching, you will have a lot of the ingredients for the pad karat, which is like a spicy cousin of the pad thai. And I'm going to transition over to our Smithsonian staff so that they can load us into checking out the pad karat from Pepper Thai's Pepper Thai cookbook. Bye, Christine. Bye, Chet.
Hi, Genevieve. Hi, Pepper. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are
Nice to
you?
meet you.
I'm so excited to be cooking with you today.
Me too.
So I just wanted to go over the ingredients and just make sure
Okay.
I have everything.
Okay.
So I have my vegetable oil here.
Yes.
I have oyster sauce.
Yes.
I made the roasted chili powder this morning. I got that.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I'm doing a substitution that I just wanted to check in with you about, because my husband was very excited about this dish, but he's also very allergic to garlic. So instead of garlic, I'm using leeks.
Okay, leeks. Because we have some shallots in there.
Oh
It
yeah,
will be fine too.
I have shallots.
Yes. Wow, this is the first time I never heard somebody allergic to garlic.
Yeah, I'm very sorry for him.
Wow.
I got
You
the
just make
fish
sure my
sauce,
camera and audio are off
Yes.
there.
got
I'm
the
just
apple
gonna
cider
follow,
vinegar,
listen to
Yes.
Pepper's
the
cooking
brown
demo. I just want to make sure
sugar,
they
the
get
chicken.
Mhm.
I have 2 eggs lightly
Yes.
beaten, and
Oh,
then I have
I still can't find that egg yet. Okay, okay.
yeah. So I think I'm all set. Is there anything else I'm forgetting?
No, in my book, like sometimes people are vegetarian, so I add tofu, you know. I have some chicken thigh.
Oh yes, I got that.
Yeah, so I all cut up tofu. That's it. And all the sauce, I combine them together in the bowl.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'll do that too then.
Okay. It make it easier.
Yeah. So in your book, in the introduction to this recipe, you talk about how this is the version of pad thai from the city that you're from Korat, which is part of Isan, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That time when I grew up in the 60s, my hometown is the Air Force base for American servicemen. So they filled with Americans out there that during the war. So that's where my hometown is. So be familiar with American, and this is one of my dish my mother made for school, but she make like a big giant wok, and then separate out in for the children in school. Yeah, mom is like cafeteria lady, and we put them in a little banana basket or something for the children.
All right. So how should we get started? You want to tell me?
Start with the oils. Okay. Maybe, well, I will add some garlic and shallot. That's plenty. And then I kind of chop it up a little bit. So we're going to heat up the oils first in like a medium high.
Medium.
Medium.
And
okay.
And Auntie Pepper, how will people know when the oil is hot enough?
That is the question. When you cook a lot, for me, I know it. I kind of put my hands over it to feel.
Yeah. Or sometimes it kind of looks like it shimmers a little bit.
Yeah. I kind of my hand over it to feel a little heat from there. But I don't do it too hot because that garlic, when they burn, they kind of doesn't taste very good.
Oh right, yeah, it gets really bitter.
Yeah, but under heat is okay, right? Just to be precautious.
So what ingredients will we be putting in the oil first?
Oh, garlic and shallots.
Okay.
Yeah, shallots. You leek or something?
Yeah.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah. I mean, if he can like chop up onions, will be fine too. Yes. Okay, let's see if our wok is hot.
Okay, I feel like mine's pretty hot. It feels ready. How about yours?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna put in the shallots.
Yes. Yes, and shallots together.
And then for me, I'm putting in leeks instead of garlic.
Okay. You're stirring it around.
So just to show folks what mine is looking like so far.
Yes, yes. It's getting smell good.
It smells really good already.
Okay. Because after this, after it's all smell aromas, a little lightly brown, then we add chicken.
Chicken, okay.
Yes.
I think maybe mine needs to brown a little bit more.
Yeah, me too, me too.
Yeah, okay. So, Auntie, for people who aren't so familiar with Isan, where you're from, can you tell us a little bit about what makes Isan food special, or like how it might be different from the Thai food that a lot of people know of in the United States?
I think my Isan food is kind of well, the beginning of street food, because you step out of the house, right there at the driveway, there'll be food stall, or the vendors, on a motorbike, on a trucks or whatever, right in front of your house. So the kind of food is not so much like Central, because we kind of less sweet, more vegetables, probably no meat at all at back then. It's very rare. If you buy pad Thai, you can't even find no meat in there. So I used to those kind of food, so I'm not really into like curry. I mean, with coconut cream, with lots of sugar in that area. So I think it's like healthy, so much vegetable. Yeah, fish and like that.
And is it spicier than Thai food from other regions? Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes. And plus you can add more. They always a ring of, more chili, more fish sauce, more pickle chilies, like on the side that you can add more.
Yeah.
Okay, mine is getting heat up, so I'm gonna add some chicken.
Okay, I'm gonna do the same.
All right.
And what we're using is boneless, skinless chicken thigh, right?
Yes, yes. Actually, for myself, I love skin on it. And then cook the chicken for about 90%. Then we will pour in over the sauce.
Okay, I'm gonna maybe I'm gonna do what you're doing, Auntie. I'm gonna bring my camera over.
Okay.
Okay,
I have a big chicken. That's okay.
So another thing that I really enjoyed about your cookbook is so many of the recipes have stories.
Yes.
Like the one that I really liked was the son-in-law eggs.
Yes, that we did that to when we first met your son-in-law to be. So we have to like praise them, so to show them that I raised a good girl daughter that and we can cook. And then they have the name of the son-in-law egg that other mother will make that when you are first meeting your son-in-law to be and the parents, of course, just to please them.
Right. Well, I love all the stories in the book, because I feel like so much of passing down food and family food traditions involve telling a story.
Yes.
And I thought that I really enjoyed that part of the book. Like, you're always telling a story on every recipe.
Yes. Because I always involved with the food since I'm about Luna age, 4, 5 years old. Always with my mother, she's cook every day.
Right. So, Auntie Pepper, do you have any favorite food stories that your mother told you in Thailand when you were growing up?
My mother, oh my God, that's such, I love her. I learned so much about her, but not very much with my mother, because we are like serious cooking to survive, like work. But sometimes I did with, as a younger age, I learned with my grandma, of course. some story, and she always like, you got to keep this, you got to learn how to make this from traditional way, not
Right.
the easy way.
Right.
Okay, now mine is almost done. The 90% is fine.
Yeah, same with mine.
Okay, and then we're gonna add all the sauce. So
Okay.
pour in all the sauce. Okay, I'll pour in.
Okay, so the sauce that we have is the oyster sauce, the fish sauce, and the apple cider vinegar, right?
Yeah, I have some some sugar.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah,
the sugar. I'll put the sugar
yeah.
in.
I have some mine. It was sweet soy.
Oh yeah, and then it's just light brown sugar.
Yeah, sugar. I'm not gonna add sugar because I used the sweet soy in there.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's really smelling good now.
Okay. And then some water, right?
Water. Okay, how much water, Auntie, should I put?
1 cup.
1 cup. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Are there any stories about food in Thailand that Luna and Miles like you to tell them? Like, do they have any favorite stories that you tell them about food?
Tell them most of because back then we don't even have no toys, so most of our making food is like for fun. So
Uh-huh.
we like have the pretending at first, like we make the coconut rice, coconut pancake. So we like start from little girl outside playing in the dirt,
Mhm.
and yeah, making those. And a thing on a stick that they love to do, or the hot pot that we make it ourselves inside the house. They kind of like play.
Right.
Yes. Now I'm gonna add some water
Water. Okay.
because you have a dry noodle, so you might need to cook longer than mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And this is a dish that you made a lot for Chrissy when she was young, right?
Oh yes, because it's so easy and anytime. Sometimes with no meat, whatever we have, mostly bacon, ham, whatever we have in there. But I can make it quick because I always had like sometimes I bought like a big bag of this noodle, the restaurant side.
Oh, right.
And it stay a long time in the fridge. And then I use it to make noodle soup, pad thai, all kinds of, and now the kids, they love the pasta. So I do it on the pasta too,
Yeah.
on the spaghetti, on the, bow tie pasta, whatever.
Yeah, like
You
I feel
got
like,
the flavor of pad thai.
yeah. I feel like as a mom, it's always nice to have a dish that everybody likes and you can make it really fast.
Yes. They can ask me anytime. I got everything ready to make. All the sauce, I have probably 4 or 5 bottles of sauce, but that's what like a basic main ingredients for the Thai cooking.
Mm-hmm.
So everything over all the soy sauce, you marinate the steak, marinate chicken, marinate everything on that one sauce. They call that seasoning sauce.
Right. So is it time when do I put in the roasted chili powder?
You know what? I forgot. You can put it right now. Actually,
Right now?
with
Okay.
the onions and at the beginning with garlics, and that's kind of like really gonna smell. You can put it now.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll put it in now. They don't know the difference.
And I didn't even roast it today because we kind of in between of moving. So I'm just gonna use mine from the chili flake. Because right now I'm getting used to make it for the children too, so I didn't even add it.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and then you add it after, before you eat,
Okay.
Yes.
Just like a little extra so you can customize it
Yes.
with how spicy you like it.
Uh-huh.
And you like really spicy food, right?
I do. Oh my goodness, I can't live without it.
You know, I think you and my mom would really get along because both of my parents come from a region of the Philippines that's known for very spicy food, and a lot of other regions of the Philippines, the food is not spicy.
Yes.
But where my parents come from, the food is pretty spicy. And you made me think of my mom at one point in the cookbook where you were talking about like working at the bar.
Yes.
You would be eating chilies.
I was
just
showing
raw.
off. Yes,
Yeah, my mom does that too. My mom does that too. She likes to eat raw chilies.
Yes, and I will bet them, you know, if you eat this, I give you $1. And then nobody can. They cry, and I love watching them. Okay, the water boil.
Yeah, it's boiling. Yep.
Okay, now you can add. You got water in there?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, you can go ahead, add the noodle.
Add the noodles. Okay.
And keep pushing it down and let it simmer in there.
Okay.
And stirring it. And I will put my. So this is double side. It's coming like this. Well, the one trick my mom said, well, never cut your noodle, but I do. Sometimes they all tangle.
My mom used to say that too, to not cut the noodles.
I know. Oh, it smells good.
Yeah, same here. I think I need a little more water.
Yes, if you do, please do it. Because you had a dry noodle.
Auntie Pepper, if I add more water, do I need to add more of the sauce ingredients?
It's up to you. Actually, you don't have to, but you know.
Well, maybe I'll taste it. Maybe I'll taste it first and see.
Yes.
Wow, it tastes really good. I'm excited.
Yes.
Okay, I might add a little more. So, Auntie Pepper, when you first came to the United States, what was the Thai food that you missed the most?
Everything. I have to figure out everything. I'm really simple street food kind of girl, you know. So everything like stick jerky beef on a stick, the satay, the sausage, with lots of vegetable that come with. I miss my vegetable, and we end up living in Idaho, Utah. So rarely, you know, vegetable. I grow my own, but then only in the summer, you know, like we have 90 days of summer, you have to hurry. But I miss, and I figured out I travel long because I cannot eat anything. I cry.
Right.
Yes, I just don't. Only American food I eat back then is a steak, you know, and then I make hot sauce.
You made your own hot sauce?
Yes.
Well, I think too, like, for a lot of immigrants and their families, food becomes even more important because food reminds you of home.
Yes,
right?
yes. And then you became pregnant. Oh my, I just look at the pictures in the magazine and just cry. And call my mom. You know, I just like no ingredients to. I only have rice. That's it. A bag of rice.
Oh, so when you were pregnant, did you crave Thai food that you didn't
have? Yes.
Oh no.
But then after that, she's a years old. We moved to California. That's getting so much better.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna get a little more, I'm gonna go around the corner here and get a little more fish sauce and oyster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Fish sauce or soy sauce will be fine. I'm so glad that people are really enjoy fish sauce now, because before it's like I can't even. I was afraid to use it, of embarrassment. The smell, or So now, like every people I know, that using soy sauce, I'm so happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, Auntie, I feel like that's like in a way that difference of shifting from feeling like maybe a little self-conscious about using soy sauce to like feeling more comfortable and confident with using fish sauce. I think that like it shows how much like American perceptions of Southeast Asian food have changed.
Yes.
So what would you say have been like the most noticeable changes in the time that you've been in the US in terms of how people's ideas or perceptions of Southeast Asian food have changed over time?
You can see it from the grocery store that they have everything. The regular normal Ralph and all of that got the Thai section. Have everything. I don't even have to make it to Thai market anymore. You can like get everything all that you need right there. So I think that's how the time changed. I remember when we lived in Utah, I have to request. People love me, so small town, and I always request, can you like bring in some bean sprouts, please? And they do, and I feel so bad for them, because I think I'm the only one that bought that.
Well, I am so excited to pop back in here. I'm like feeling like I can smell all the flavors all the way from across so the ocean. Yes. You were talking, Auntie Pepper, about the availability of ingredients. I'm almost 40 now, and for the first time in my life, I saw Burmese aisle in the grocery store. My mom is from Burma. And I wonder, I was thinking about your cookbook, and I wonder when you put the cookbook together and when you started writing it, were you thinking a lot about the future, about how when people like you write a cookbook, that then your grandchildren and other people, maybe there's going to be, even Thai food, I don't know, like we see sushi now in the grocery store. Do you think that it's really important to have these books? Is that legacy? Are you thinking about that?
I think so. I'm so happy, because I can't even imagine people eating sushi, but it made it, and it's become so famous. And that's the same thing that I want in Southeast Asian food. Like people recognize it and not just only order it. And I want them to learn how to make it. It's like not hard as they think, because it's so easy. I know people are gonna love it and doing it themselves. You can make a big batch instead of $10 pad Thai from the Thai restaurant. I mean, this one you can get like a big wok. I didn't put no vegetable in yet, so like our whole family can eat the whole. That's whole one batch for everyone.
Genevieve, as you're wrapping up in the last couple minutes of
okay,
looks like
did your noodles
we're getting
yet?
ready? Yeah. How are we doing over there, Genevieve?
Let me check over here and see if the noodles are soft. I'm thinking yes, but I'm just going to taste it just to make sure.
Yeah, because if they're not soft, you can add some more water.
They're not quite soft.
Mine is getting soft, and I'm just about to add some egg.
Egg, okay.
Yeah, sometimes I didn't do egg. It depends on what we like today. So I didn't do egg for a while. Today I will add some egg.
So in the book, in the recipe, there was like a very specific technique for adding the egg. Can you explain it again, just so I can make sure to do it right?
Like when you put in fried rice, you put in first before the rice. But this one you kind of lightly cook. It's called kind of like in Italian, add some cheese or something in there to make it like it's actually that's what I thought of it. But we put it in just about now,
Okay.
and I kind of lightly, not even. The egg, I kind of, it depends. I like them that way, just about that. And then I will add it in, and then I keep them right there, stay right there for a while. But this because my noodles is already softened and soaking up all the liquid. You got non-stick pan, you can turn up the heat a little bit.
Yeah, I turned up the heat a little bit to help the noodles get soft.
Yes. I mean, even in supermarket, Thai market, they will have some Korat noodle. That's what exactly from my hometown, because it's like a lot better than this normal dry noodle, because that one from my hometown, and it's a kind of a little bit chewy. I really like it that way. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, now I'm gonna turn the noodle over the eggs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Kind of cover and let it simmer under there for a little bit till it cook.
So I'm doing the same thing you did. I'm just leaving my egg up.
I know. Keep doing it. The more you're doing it, the more you get it all perfect.
Yeah.
Really, yes. And then last I will add some vegetable, at the end of it. I'm sure the eggs already cooked by now. So I'll flip it up some more. There. And then I will go with my vegetable. I love vegetables, so I add a lot. And it will cook down before you know it.
So what vegetables are you adding, Auntie Pepper?
I like Chinese broccoli.
Oh, I love Chinese broccoli.
The kid loves broccoli. So to make it authentic, I had to use Chinese broccoli. The kind of look like this, a little like this one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
and
I like
the
them.
whole thing, right? The stem and the leaf.
Yes, yes. So then you kind of stir it around.
Should I add the scallions yet?
Scallion, it's about right now too. Yes, then like the end, sometimes you didn't even need to cook it.
Okay.
Kind of flip it over it. Well, mine is cooked, it's soft. So now if you're cooked, you can add the, which vegetable that you like.
Okay, so I'm adding some sprouts here.
Yes, yes.
My local grocery store didn't have regular bean sprouts, so I just got like
I know.
Sprouts.
In the pandemic, I had a hard time finding bean sprouts too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm gonna put the scallions in too.
Yes. Mine, at this point, I just turn it off. I like my vegetables still crispy in there, so.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing.
So I add some more this right on top. That's it, we're done.
Oh, so beautiful. It's looking so yummy.
Oh, wow.
Remember,
so
mine is
yummy.
double of your thing, so that's why I got more.
You have double. Genevieve, how many are you cooking for over there?
I'm cooking for 3. So let me show you mine. It's a lot.
Yes, yes. I love to add more vegetable in there. You'll love it.
Okay, Genevieve, I'm coming over.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, while we were talking today, I just want this little cooking time and this cooking break together. I want it to never ever end. But I think all good things, we have to come to an end, and I'm going to be so sad to leave you all today. But before we leave you all, can we just chat a little bit about, this series is about the future of Southeast Asian food. And as I'm listening to both of you, I'm thinking about, I grew up with my second family is Thai also, and my mom being from Burma, all the things that you're talking about. When Genevieve asked you and she said, how do you think things are changing? You're describing all the same stories that my mom had, right? Never being able to find everything. And then you go to the grocery store, there's a whole Thai aisle, a Burmese aisle. It's like, wow, things have changed really quite fast, right? Just for Chrissy and your grandchildren and Genevieve and her family too. Everything's changing so fast. What's your hope? Like, if you had to say, I'm so hopeful for something for people to understand something about Southeast Asian food, or to see what's going to happen in the future. I think we couldn't have even imagined 5 or 10 years ago that there would be a Thai aisle in the supermarket. What do you hope for the future?
I hope for, this is just perfect as the way it is right now, but I hope people learn more and how to make Thai cooking fun, right? It's like Filipinos and easy that you do with your family. It's such a joy. It's like something different in you. Like, I learned how to cook some different kind of food too, like with Chrissy. So I learned so much along the way of everything, all the different ingredients. And I still think my Thai ingredients is a lot easier and simple. So I hope everyone learn how to cook. People been cooking it and send me the pictures. People eat more spicy. People grow their own basil. So we had a hard time finding from the market. And this is make me so happy, and happy that I got to see the pictures they sent me.
Yeah, isn't it so exciting to see that now it's not something over to the side, like this is American culture and then Thai food's over there. It's like there's a more of an exchange now, right? Do you feel like maybe in the future we're going to see more chefs like you, chefs like my mom and Genevieve, maybe making Italian food or making different foods? Do you think we'll see more of that?
We love experiment. Italian, but in fusion is. We love that. Chrissy is very into that right now.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing to make together that's like with Thai food and mixing with other foods?
Yeah, I have a leftover steak and I make into Thai food, into yam nua, beef salad, or like pad Thai spaghetti or American fried rice. We made it up.
That's my favorite thing to make. I call it remix cuisine. We remix the food.
Yes. And then the children, they used to my cookbook cooking a lot, but then they like some other kind of pasta and all of that too. So the kid is so lucky they can eat anything now, and I'm so glad that's what they're gonna grow up, and no picky. They can eat. We travel around the world and we had no problem eating any kind of food.
It's so exciting to think about that. Sunny, what do you feel like what are you looking forward to? What do you think we can hope for Southeast Asian? I was gonna say Southeast Asian American. It is, right? It's Southeast Asian, it's Asian American, but specifically food from our region. What do you think is gonna happen? What do you want to see happen?
Well, in terms of what I hope for, I feel like I am already seeing it, like seeing the sense of it, which is that I feel like there's a generation of people who are entering our industry now, or people who are maybe still young, who are teenagers or kids who will be the leaders in our industry in the future. And they're growing up seeing their food really accepted as part of the American table. And that's what I'm so excited about, is to have, the Southeast Asian Americans who are in the restaurant industry in the future, they're really having the formative years and a childhood where they are like confident and have a lot of pride in their food. And I think that that's something that, like, I always really loved Filipino food, but where I was growing up in Chicago, it wasn't mainstream at all. And I think the great thing about Southeast Asian folks who are coming up now is they can see themselves all through the culture, all through the food culture. And they can see people who look like them, who are on TV talking about food, who are publishing cookbooks like Auntie Pepper, who are writing, who are food journalists, and they can identify with those folks and say, okay, I can do that because I see this person who looks like me who's doing it. So I know I can do it too. You know? And I think just like people having confidence in what their vision of their cuisine is and not looking to other people to tell them if it's correct or authentic, but just like really having a lot of pride in their own voice and in their own interpretation of what their food is.
Do you think that we are starting to see Asian American food, but specifically Southeast Asian? Is it already being normalized with what we were talking about with the grocery stores and the representation that you're speaking to? Do you think that we're getting close? Do you think the pandemic has shaken us at all off that course? Or do you think we're headed that way? Do you think that we're headed in the direction of Southeast Asian food becoming normalized?
I definitely think we're still on that trajectory. You know, I think that, you know, what people eat is like their sense of what's on the table is so expanded from what it used to be. And I just don't think there's any stopping that, you know? I don't think that anything can derail that movement or that progress.
For me, I think it's getting so much better. To me, this pandemic, people been cooking a lot. People get bored.
Right.
The food we order is not even as good now. You know, like
Right.
I don't know, they're in rush or what. It's like, so the taste different. Sometimes we do order it too, Thai food, and it kind of different. But now it's like been in. People can, the ingredients. I see it in the market. People cook more. People asking me more questions about what and where I can find this, that, and sometimes it's so hard. We buy everything in like big bulk, so we order, Amazon or whatever that we did. We get a bag of coconut milk. So I'm very happy for what the Thai food had became right now. And I know it's gonna get better, even better from now. Just so normal. We got, even here we got Thai towels, and so.
Yeah, it's so important. We just had a conversation about Chinatowns and how they're our cultural hub and the heartbeat of the cities. You know, LA is one of the only places in America with Thai Town, right? You're very lucky there to have a hub. You mentioned that when you moved to California, that was a totally different experience. What does it mean to you? Is it important to have a Thai Town there? How has it changed your experience?
Well, when we moved back then in '86, Christy was still a baby, but we didn't live right in LA. We lived by Long Beach, closer to San Diego, in that area. But they do have some little market, Cambodian, little Thai place, Lao markets and that. So that's how, but it's close, and I got everything. I'm telling you, I mean, even Chrissy little, 5 years old, we grow our own vegetable, and we brought it to the market and sell it to them because so much. So, but it's different. We kind of like a long way, maybe 40-50 miles to downtown. We've never been out here, you know. We probably come drive around Beverly Hills, Hollywood to see the stuff when we have some company, but and then we left. This is like first time that I live right downtown where the, you know, where Thai towns and the temples are. I took the children to the temples on the weekend. I wish we go back and back to normal so I can resume my normal again.
Yeah, I can't wait. I hope we get to come and cook and eat with you in Thai Town.
Please come, I'll show you.
Oh, thank you so much. Auntie Genevieve, I just want to ask one more thing. I know you're going to stay on with us and join in with the other panelists as we have a larger conversation, but maybe just thinking about what we don't know or what a lot of Americans don't know. Is there something, if you had to say maybe one or two things that you'd really like people to stop saying or start saying, something that you want people to know about Southeast Asian food that you feel like it's still, even with all this growth, grocery stores and Thai towns, is there anything that you feel like is still kind of like, I just hope that one day, you know, when we're talking about the future, that for me, for example, in the future, I'm thinking like, I hope that it's as easy to say like, you know, let's go for Lao or let's go for Khmer or Khmer or something that maybe is thought of fringe, that it's just like pizza, pasta, sushi, you know, Filipino food. What is it for you? What's that thing for you?
I guess for me, the thing that I wish people would understand a little more is just how much our food means to us. You know, like, I think that especially if you live in a big American city where you have so many options in terms of different cuisines to choose from, choosing what to eat might feel to a lot of people like, oh, like just choosing what clothes you're wearing that day, or like choosing what to do with your weekend, like almost like an incidental thing, like a lot of times just a transaction, you know. But for a lot of us, and I think for immigrants just in general, part of why our food is so important to us is like what we were saying earlier, Auntie Pepper, is it's our connection to home. And so it's not just what we're having for dinner on Thursday, it's like really our connection to our home countries. And for those of us who are born in the United States who might not have as strong of a connection to the mother country, like food is a way to connect with our culture. And so much of that also is how we connect with our family too. So it's, to me, food is such like an elemental part of our family and our culture. And I wish that people would really appreciate the depth of it. So I guess one thing I can think of specifically is like, it really bothers me how when a new cuisine gets some more time in the spotlight, people talk about it like, ooh, it's the new up and coming trend, you know, but trends come and go, you know, trends are cool just for a little amount of time. And then after that, people don't think they're cool. But for me, and I feel like the conversation around Filipino food has changed so much in the past like 10 years. Like my food is not going away for me. You know, like my food is always gonna be cool to me. And just, I don't want people to think of people's heritage and people's food that is like so meaningful as just something that comes and goes, something that's like here today, gone tomorrow, you know. Like I wish that people would appreciate that it's like a living, breathing, very resonant, important thing in our lives, what we eat.
Auntie Pepper, we're gonna rush over to your house and stand 6 feet away from you and eat that pakra.
Wow, that looks so good.
Yum, let's see. That looks so delicious.
Wow, delicious. Wow. Okay, I plated mine.
Okay, let's see yours.
Yours.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And
That
then
looks great
I like to
too.
add some more because I love bean
Oh,
sprouts
that's
so
nice.
much.
That's nice.
That looks so
Yeah.
delicious. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you
cooking
so
with us. We
much.
can't wait to cook all the recipes in the Pepper Thai cookbook and also to be together in this exciting future. Auntie Pepper, is there anything else you want to share with the people? We have hundreds of people tuning in from all across the country. Anything else you want to share with them about the food or the book?
Yes, please. My book came out and I'm so happy. I've been doing it for over years, cooking. Look at how I'm getting much bigger than when I started the cookbook. I'm so exciting now. It's on the promoting on the book. I hope people get my book. It's so easy. Learn how to cook Thai food. I'm sure people gonna love it. I really do. Thank you and have fun cooking. Send me the pictures. Love you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, thank you so much. Bye, Auntie.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, so I want to know who out there is feeling hungry. I know that I'm so looking forward to cooking Auntie Pepper's pad korat. And I want to say thank you to our panelists, Jet Tila, Christine Ha, Genevieve Villamora, and Pepper Teagan. And thank you again to the Asian Pacific American Initiatives Pool Ethnic Asian Food Beyond Misnomers and Myths will take place on Wednesday, June 9th, and we will post a link for more information in the chat. One more note before you go, please, please, please complete the survey that will pop up as you exit the program. We truly value your thoughts and feedback. Thank you again to all of you for joining us. A special thank you to our interpreters and our captioners. And please keep eating Southeast Asian food. Enjoy your evening. We'll see you on June 9th.